Hi, my name is Dr. John Douillard, and I want to share with you today some groundbreaking research comparing mouth and nose breathing exercise. Back in 1993, a year before my Body, Mind, Sport book came out, we did some research comparing mouth and nasal breathing exercise. We did 3 studies. The first was a case study where I was the subject. The results were great. We then did a pilot study with 3 subjects, and the results were great. That allowed us to do a final study with 5 subjects that was published in the International Journal of Neuroscience. The first 2 studies were never published, and I'm posting that unpublished study on my website in this particular newsletter so you can see the results of those first 2 studies. And in this newsletter, I'm going to summarize the results of the first 2 studies. The third study, I actually have the abstract posted on this particular newsletter so you can read some of the results, but you can get a reprint by actually linking to the International Journal of Neuroscience, and that link is actually in the article associated with this video. So, what happened in the first 2 studies? Some amazing things happened. Number one, and I've talked about this a little bit in Body, Mind, Sport, but I've never actually shared all the results that we found in those studies. We measured some very important things. One thing that was interesting was the heart rates with nasal breathing and mouth breathing were about the same. Now, when you breathe through your nose, some researchers say it's 100 times harder to breathe through your nose, so it should be much more difficult to breathe through your nose while exercising, so the heart rate should go up, but it didn't. In fact, they were very, very equal. So that is an indicator that there was some less stress during the workout. We also did what's called perceived exertion, which means we had a scale of 1 to 10, and the athletes were asked how they felt along the way during the exercise with their mouth closed, doing nasal breathing exercise, and also with their mouth open, doing mouth breathing exercise. And in one of the studies, in the case study, the results were during the maximum load of the nasal breathing exercise, the perceived exertion was a 4 out of 10. During the maximal load in the mouth breathing exercise, doing the same exact work, the perceived exertion was a 10 out of 10. Imagine, running as fast as you can next to somebody else running as fast as they can, but your perception of exertion is a 4 out of 10 and theirs is a 10 out of 10. We also measured perceived comfort, and the comfort level was significantly higher as well during nasal breathing versus mouth breathing exercise, which was very cool. Also measured breath rates. Breath rates were dramatically lower during nasal breathing exercise. In the case study, it was 48 breaths per minute during the mouth breathing exercise. That's very, very fast. And only 14 breaths per minute during nasal breathing exercise. To give you a reference, the average person sitting in rest, sitting in your chair watching this video is 16 to 18 breaths per minute. So we were breathing, riding a bike sub-maximally at 200 watts of resistance, pretty vigorous, breathing 4 breaths per minute slower than you are sitting in your chair right now. There's a level of efficiency that we're brewing here which is quite phenomenal. We then measure what's called the respiratory sinus arrhythmia. It's a way of measuring heart rate variability, which means that when the heart rate is locked in, boom, 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 the body's sort of stressed out. When the body's not stressed out, it goes boom, 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 boom. There's a little variability in the rhythm of the heartbeat. It's called the sinus arrhythmia. And if it's really small, it's completely fine. It's a sign of chill and relaxation. And of course, it's a measurement of what's called heart rate variability. It measures your parasympathetic nervous system. During the nasal breathing exercise, the parasympathetic activation stayed higher. Normally in exercise, parasympathetic completely disappears and sympathetic fight or flight takes over. In our study, that didn't happen. Sympathetic actually went down and parasympathetic actually went up, indicating we created what's called the coexistence of opposites. My goal with the Body, Mind, Sport book and this research years ago was to produce the runner's high, the zone, that ability to be completely locked in, that yoga union experience of complete mind-body coordination. That was the goal. And we actually showed, and I have the research in this newsletter, you can read the results, that we showed that we had the coexistence of the opposites, that my best race is my easiest race experience. When Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, he said the world seemed to stand still or not even exist. It was that place of total peace and calm in the midst of dynamic activity. That was the goal, and we reproduced that. In addition, We measured it with brainwave patterns during the exercise, and this study was unprecedented. Normally, during exercise, the brain becomes very incoherent. And in our study showed that the brain waves became very coherent during exercise. In other words, all different parts of the brain were doing the same thing, as opposed to being very scattered. And that was another piece of the study. And the most profound part was the alpha wave bursts that were produced during the exercise. In other words, during nasal breathing exercise, the brain would slip into major 15-second long alpha bursts, the runner's high, the zone. What was kind of interesting, and you'll read about this in the study, and when I was doing the case study, I slipped into, and the whole goal of my book, Body, Mind, Sport, was to get into the zone, the runner's high. And as I was doing the workout, I felt this total euphoria and this ease come about me. And I signaled to the researchers that I was in the zone. And during that moment, I went into a 15-second burst of alpha wave production. Normally, during exercise, up until this point during research, alpha was never produced during vigorous exercise. It was produced after exercise, sometimes before exercise, but never actually during. This was an unprecedented finding. Only today are we beginning to see alpha bursts in athletes who are doing extreme things like base jumping off of Mount Everest or skyscrapers or doing really extreme things where their life is at risk. The brain goes into this super high coordinated state. And that's what they're looking at. The only way to get to the zone these days is to risk your life. And we did research 20 years plus ago that showed that you don't have to kill yourself, risk your life to get to the zone. You can reproduce it by many of the ancient Ayurvedic techniques, one of which, including many, yoga, breathing, meditation, but in this case, it was just simply breathing through your nose during exercise that produced significant alpha theta bursts during the exercise that were unprecedented. It was a powerful, powerful study. And I'm very excited, as you can see, to share the research of the first two studies, which have never been really available before until now. So if you're a nasal breathing geek and a fan of the runner's high zone geek like me, you'll love reading this article and reading the study itself. In the article associated with this video, I also summarize all the research that's there. And the last piece that was interesting was the endurance levels were significantly improved in nasal breathing exercise versus mouth breathing. And these studies pretty much stayed consistent through all three studies. So we have three studies to back that up. So now we have some really powerful and solid proof that there is value and a difference between nasal versus mouth breathing exercise. I truly invite you to read the article associated with this video and learn more about how to maybe enjoy exercise for the first time ever, how to get really powerful benefits of being composed and calm in exercise as a model for handling the stress in your life so you don't have to get stressed out in your life. Imagine being composed and calm. Imagine running as fast as you could and your brainwave producing the same brainwaves you would in a meditation, but you're running as fast as you could. That's what we're talking about. The ability to be completely composed and calm in the midst of stress in every aspect of your life, not just exercise. It's a powerful, powerful thing. And I invite you to learn more. It's a lot. Don't miss this article associated with this video where you actually can read all the research on the very first two studies. And if you want to get a reprint of the final study, you can go to the International Journal of Neuroscience to get that reprint. Thank you for listening. I'm Dr. John Douillard.
This recording is brought to you by LifeSpa, where ancient Ayurvedic wisdom meets modern science. Get access to free health video newsletters by Dr. John at lifespa.com.